Hey, welcome. Come on in, take a seat. The world actually runs on an operating system. It's a hidden set of rules and strategies that honestly, most adults never really sit down and explain to you. Some people only figure it out way later in life, if at all. But you are going to understand it right now. Think of this explainer as your personal insider's guide. As an intelligent young boss, I know you already see things differently, so we absolutely aren't using baby talk today. We're going to decode the real mechanics of money, technology, and society together.
So check out this headline that recently hit the financial news. Pharma Essentia's Ropeg completes global phase 3 clinical trial enrollment for myelofibrosis. I want you to just take a second and really process that sentence. To most adults, this looks like completely incomprehensible alien language. It's just a giant wall of medical jargon that most people would scroll right past without a second thought.
It sounds like alien language, right? But, underneath all those massive words is actually this epic, high-stakes story of strategy and survival. Okay, let's dive into this. I'm going to translate this complex biotech news for you into a thrilling, easy-to-understand dungeon-clearing RPG narrative. Because the secret is, once you see the game, you finally understand how the world works. First up, we've got to understand the battlefield. What exactly is myelofibrosis, or MF? Well, imagine the inside of your bones, your bone marrow, as this massive geometric blood factory with these perfectly turning gears just churning out red and white blood cells for you every single day. Now, imagine if that beautiful, efficient factory was suddenly invaded by unyielding scar tissue. Thick, gray vines of fibrosis wrapping around the gears, completely trapping them and halting normal cell production. That is MF. It's a rare and incredibly difficult disease to treat. Now, here's where the strategy kicks in. This biotech company, Pharma Essentia, created a drug called Ropeg. And honestly, think of Ropeg as an upgraded superweapon. They already used this exact weapon to conquer an old dungeon, a totally different disease called polycythemia vera. They won that battle and generated a ton of capital. But they didn't stop there. They are taking this super weapon into a much harder, highly lucrative new dungeon, myelofibrosis. In the business world, an untouched area with massive opportunity and basically zero competitors is what we call a blue ocean market. So, that headline mentioned they completed phase 3 trial and enrollment. What does that actually mean in plain English? Basically, it just means all the test subjects have been gathered. Imagine a massive global university. The final exam is today, and all the students have finally gathered in the exam hall, and they are sitting at their desks. The enrollment is complete. Now, the company just has to sit back and wait for the final grades, which is the scientific data, to come back. If they pass this massive test, this drug can be sold globally, changing literally millions of lives and moving billions of dollars. And this whole situation brilliantly illustrates a concept we absolutely need to talk about, the butterfly effect. Because this isn't just about one single company passing a test. It's about a tiny shift, kind of like a butterfly flapping its wings in Taiwan, that creates a massive global impact. What we are really looking at here is a macroeconomic shift that could restructure entire global markets. See, for a long time, Taiwan has been famous for its silicon shield. Producing those advanced semiconductor computer chips that literally run the world, led by heavyweights like TSMC. But if this new superweapon drug actually succeeds, it proves a major evolution. It proves Taiwan doesn't just manufacture computer chips, it also creates top-tier, life-saving drugs. This would essentially create a massive new economic pillar, transforming the region into a biotech Silicon Island. Right, so let's look at the foundational secret to actually accumulating wealth in these kinds of situations. It's a totally crucial economic model called the first mover advantage. I really want you to remember this term. It is the massive edge you gain by being the very first person or the very first company to enter and dominate a completely untouched market. Let's make this super simple. Imagine you are the very first person at your school to invent, let's say, boba-flavored fried chicken. Because you are the absolute first to do it, you have zero competition. You have total pricing power, meaning you decide exactly what it costs. And you build instant brand loyalty. By the time anyone else tries to copy your recipe, you've already won the whole school over. That is exactly what Ropeg's long-acting interferon technology is doing right now. They are using their unique tech to rush into this rare disease market first, aiming to lock in that first-mover advantage on a massive global scale. Moving right along to our next section, the late-night Great Power Café, where we look at the geopolitics of biotech. You see, a global launch of a new technology is never just about the science itself. Picture this: a misty, dimly lit cafe in London with this massive, heavy mahogany table. Here, all the major global players are gathered, and we can picture them as different characters. Every single nation is quietly calculating its own core interests within the world's operating system. Because it's never just about medicine, it's about power, standards, logic, and capital. Let's look at how each one of these players views this exact same piece of news. So, sitting at the head of the table is the United States, and their perspective is crystal clear. The global FDA standards and commercial game rules must be set by me. They aren't necessarily focused on who makes the drug first in the lab. Their core interest is controlling the overarching regulatory matrix that every other country is forced to pass through. Directly across the table, we have China. Their strategic focus is incredibly long-term. Their stance is, biotech autonomy is the future strategic high ground. I must dominate the Asian market. They are operating with this impressive 10-year strategic patience, focusing heavily on regional independence and making absolutely sure they aren't totally reliant on Western pharmaceuticals. Then we have Japan. Their approach is totally meticulous. They're saying, I will push every clinical data's quality control and safety to absolute zero-defect precision. For an aging society like theirs, the core interest isn't necessarily winning the geopolitical race. It's absolute safety, precision medicine, and ensuring the absolute highest possible quality of life for their elderly population. Meanwhile, Germany approaches this whole thing through a lens of pure logical analysis. They're thinking, the pegulation tech is highly optimized. I will build an automated logistics system for Europe. They look right at the chemical bonds, specifically the pegulation that reduces side effects, and they immediately start thinking about systemic efficiency and how to physically distribute this optimized technology flawlessly. And what about the United Kingdom? Well, their perspective is purely financial. They're sitting there noting London and Wall Street have already calculated the profit distribution of this capital game. High-level finance essentially stays above the messy fray of the laboratory. They focus strictly on capital allocation, watching exactly where the money will flow regardless of who actually wins the scientific race. Now, India brings this brilliantly disruptive strategy to the table. Their play is, we can use IT to optimize manufacturing and create affordable medicine for the world's poor. Their long-term goal is to use flexible IT and manufacturing prowess to eventually break past restrictive patents, making exclusive, expensive medicine inclusive for the entire globe. It is a highly admirable, systemic approach to global healthcare. And finally, sitting right at the center of the table, pouring Alishan coffee for everyone, is Taiwan. They understand every single nation's underlying motives without explicitly calling them out. Their statement is simple and focused. Our drug meets all your standards. It is a gift we've spent years preparing for the world's suffering patients. They remain entirely focused on the core mission of healing while brilliantly navigating the complex web of all these global demands. But okay, here is the ultimate reality check. And this is where I really need you to listen to me carefully. Biotech investing carries massive, massive risks. If the research fails, if that final exam grade comes back as a fail, those highly valued stocks can become worthless wallpaper literally overnight. I never want you blindly following random stock tips or getting swept up in the internet hype cycle. That is a game for gamblers, not for thinkers like us. So the crucial point is, how do you actually apply all this? Well, I've got 2 highly actionable steps you can execute today to start mastering this operating system. Number 1, establish a tech monster observation notebook. And number 2, invest in your cross-disciplinary brain. Let's dig into step 1. You don't need to risk any real money here. Just set up a tracking list. I want you to track Pharma Essentia's stock. That's ticker 6446, like you are waiting for a new episode of your absolute favorite anime to drop. Watch passively. Observe exactly how the real-world price reacts when new scientific data is released. This is completely free simulation training. It builds your financial intuition without risking a single dollar of your hard-earned capital. Now, step 2 is honestly even more important. You've got to invest in your cross-disciplinary brain. Look at what we just discussed today. We seamlessly wove together biology, understanding cellular mutations in bone marrow, with business logic, like blue ocean markets and first mover advantage. And then we threw in geopolitics with the Great Power Café. The most successful people in the future, they won't just be book smart in one single isolated area. They will be the ones who can actually connect the dots between all of them. Because at the end of the day, real wealth, both financial and intellectual, it's built on logic and independent thinking, not on just blindly following the crowd. Honestly, seeing you sit here taking the time to truly understand the deep mechanics of how our world operates, I am incredibly proud of how you are learning to view the world. You're already showing more maturity and logical thinking than most adults I know. You just have to keep that curiosity sharp. Never stop questioning exactly how the gears of the world turn. So, young boss, think about it. What complex alien topic should we decode together next? I can't wait for our next lesson. Until then,